Hey everyone. Okay, I have some cool stuff to go over again. I made more progress as well. And there was something very important that I should have covered in the last video that I didn't mention, which is actually something that, I should have covered, actually. It's how I'm doing the positional memory, when you die, you leave your items on the ground. And typically speaking, I mean, in a very basic sense, that would be acceptable to just do. Uh, where you never know, like if there's too many places that you can explore and stuff like that, then the player is very unlikely to like reach an area where it's impossible to get to and stuff like that. In more complicated games, however, this is true for Dark Souls. Have you ever noticed that sometimes when you die in Dark Souls, your soul is not exactly in this position you were when you died? Um, this is actually something that a lot of games, Warframe does this as well. When you fall down a pit in Warframe, you'll like fall down and then you'll warp back, and it's not always the same place that you warp. You ever notice that? If you're experienced playing Warframe at all, basically what happens here is we utilize the Navmesh and constantly detect if where the player is currently on the Navmesh, and if you're not on the Navmesh anymore, then that position doesn't no longer updates. So it's actually technically impossible for me to like jump off a cliff and like fall to my death, and then my stuff is down here where there should be no valid nav mesh down here. Nav mesh meaning this green navigation stuff, kind of just floating around and kind of covers the floor of every traversable surface in the gaming world. So how this is achieved is actually something that I should explain, and I can show the blueprints for it as well. So and to really kind of like give the TLDR of it, because I was kind of just beating around the bush. Basically, you don't want the player to drop his stuff in a location that is not accessible. And people get in all kinds of weird places. And so a very common practice in game design, where nav meshes are available to the development, is to utilize a nav mesh to determine whether or not you are in a traversable location, and therefore if that position should be updated. So every 2 seconds on the player controller, I do a check. Well, first of all, I just do this is just for safety reasons. You're always going to have an active home point, even if you're in the hub world. You're going to have an act. There's going to be a home point sitting in the middle of it. Um, but basically, I get the player's current location, and I get the player's current location, and I get the location of the home point. So your home point is saved on your player controller as as a variable just called home point. I then every 2 seconds do a find path to location synchronously, and what this does is it just finds a path, and then I determine whether or not if that path is valid. If the path is valid, that means that the home point can reach the player by traversing this terrain. And when I say terrain, I mean any the various like movement space, and I don't mean specifically terrain meshes. I mean everything. Then last valid location on nav gets updated to the player's current location. And that's how I actually do this. This is a very good practice. If you don't do it this way, you will regret it because some poor player is going to lose his shit because he's going to jump off a cliff and his stuff's going to be sitting down there. You simply just don't want to you don't want the player to have his stuff sitting in a spot that's just completely inaccessible. Now, this does have the problem where and this happens in uh, Dark Souls as well. It's never usually that bad though. Like it's not game breaking when it happens, but this stuff isn't exactly where you died. It's in a weird spot, like it's kind of like a little further over or whatever. Like you'll notice those kinds of things. That's just because it wasn't a valid location on the Navmesh, or you died at just 1.9 seconds, and you were running really fast, and you died at exactly the right time. Um, so you end up getting some kind of weirdness like that. It's not terribly expensive to be doing this all the time. It's every 2 seconds. Um, but that also raises another thing as well, which is actually kind of a good limitation. I Too often when I talk to people who want to who want to work on games, is they act as though limitations in the design are unanimously bad, or it's unilaterally like a bad idea to ever implement such a thing. Like never allow limitations, make everything as robust as possible. Not in my opinion. In my opinion, sometimes limitations are where you get the creativity. So when you have a design like this, I have to keep in mind that I can't do a really crazy level now where the floors are constantly moving up and down and and you have really crazy shit, and also make sure that the players' belongings are going to be able to travel with them uh, when they die. So I'll be on this moving platform, but when I die, my shit's gonna be sitting all the way at the very beginning before I even started doing the jumping puzzle, and after that, I'll have to keep in mind that once you get past that puzzle, my stuff is still sitting all the way over there because it can no longer traverse from the home point. So I have to think about that. That's a level design problem. That's something that I have to be thinking about as a level designer. So that's when you might actually come up with like a solution such as opening an alternate path after you do the crazy jump thing with the earthquake and the and the jumping puzzle. Maybe you walk up to a thing, a button, and activate it, and it opens up an alternate path, and now which then opens up more nav mesh, and you can now all of a sudden, not only do you have a shortcut, so you can avoid having to do that probably very mentally taxing and frustrating sequence all over again, but you've also provided a means for the home point to reach the nav mesh of the new location. So there are a lot of organic game development scenarios I've found over the years. Organic in that it's not something that you can really quantify specifically in a design document. That's sometimes one of the reasons why I dislike design documents, because it won't, if you know what you want, if you have a good idea of it, like most people don't like reading them anyway, but sometimes when you're doing your own stuff, you come up with ideas while you're working on it. And I kind of dislike that. If you're in charge of a bigger team, or if you're in charge of a project and you actually have people working under you, you can ask for more specific things, and if they can't get those things to work, and there's more structure involved with that, and you can kind of get away with it. But if you're kind of like a lone wolf, or in a very small team, it's kind of weird to see how things emerge. And one of those things is a change that I just made to inventory items. You remember those credit chips? Well, I decided to change the credit chips to um, lock boxes. I think it's more fun. Now that you get loot, now that you get credits when you highlight loot bubbles, and all of the loot bubbles now provide a different amount of loot of credits when you highlight them. This is now a more interesting gameplay element, and maybe like you can pay an NPC to open them, and maybe there's items that are unique to these lockboxes that are fairly rare, or maybe you know what I mean. The lockboxes actually do a better job of what I wanted to accomplish with the credit chips, because the credit chips wouldn't be a very interesting mini game, but opening lockboxes now, whoa, that's a whole entire paradigm based on microtransactions. I mean, it's meant to be extraordinarily addicting for a reason. It's an addictive element. You actually, I mean, to go as far, I don't know if I can do this personally, but or if I will, but you literally have the little window, and then you have the line in the middle, and it just sort of scrolls through all the items that you could possibly get by when you open the box, and then it like slows down, and there's really badass item. Oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, and you just miss it, or you just get it. That kind of stuff is fucking like drugs. Shit, that's fucking heroin. Um, there are certain points where it just borderlines on fucking like moral dilemma. At a certain point, we have to accept this. It's maybe the most to someone who's not paying attention to or someone who's not quite thinking about this from sort of a conscientious observer, but it's insidious. But maybe not evil. All right, maybe I won't characterize that as that. But it's yeah. I don't know what kind of a person does that make me. Yeah. Anyway, the thing is that I think those kinds of elements are what you're kind of wanting to get anyway. Like you're signing up for it. It's not, and let's be frank. I mean, there's no withdrawal symptoms unless you want to like stop playing the game, like CS:GO or something, which a lot of people seem to get swallowed whole by that kind of a. All right, another topic for another video. Anyway, I wanted to go into that. Sorry, I went off on that rant. Now I obviously have some Navmesh issues that I need to fix right now. Navmesh requires attention. I don't know if anybody who's listening to this, if you have ever worked with Navmesh before, you do often have to make sure that the Navmesh is a happy, healthy thing, that there isn't waste, that there isn't, um, yeah, oftentimes you have to kind of like imagine where you want enemies to actually navigate, or if you want and making sure that islands are actually connected, and making sure that enemies can actually jump up and down between islands. I haven't even opened that can of worms in this tech yet, but it's that there's stuff like that. Like uh, if an enemy is up here and there's no like way to connect the nav mesh from this to that this guy is going to kind of just think that he's kind of stuck up here. He's never going to be able to get down. But one of the other things about Navmesh that I dislike, and this ended up kind of being true with path nodes as well, is that the enemies, their navigation becomes a little too efficient, and it's something that is, and when I say too efficient, they're too willing to travel at you in a perfect straight line. And I know that I can modify their pathing um, behaviors, which I intend to do. It's just that there's no variance in the movement. There's no granularity. Uh, you have when you spawn a bunch of zombie guys, they're pretty much the Navmesh is such a beautiful system that it's not meant for dumb enemies that are kind of meant to meander. When you want to have those Doom style enemies where part of the intricacies of fighting them is that they're sort of unpredictable in the way that they move. They're not necessarily traveling directly at you. Even the pinky demons, even the enemies that are meant to be chargers with lots of health and are meant to bite your face off in Doom and fucking most of those games of that particular era, well before even path nodes existed, were more unpredictable. They kind of wandered and kind of waddle around, and then they reach you. Whereas when you get into this modern paradigm, which is Navmesh, you you circumvent even the slightest bit of variation. It becomes a mess in a beautifully perfect way. It's almost a sort of I don't know. You're actually telling the enemies to be stupider, whereas with path nodes, what you would have is you would have an enemy who would very obviously dip between two different styles of navigation, where if he's using path nodes, then he sees you. Now I'm dodging and shooting and doing all this weird shit and jumping around like a dumbass, and you know what I mean? And then once he loses sight of you, then he becomes a perfect, guy who travels in a perfectly straight line and blah, 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 blah. And then he sees you and I'm jumping around, I'm doing this, blah, 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 right? And that's how path nodes changed things. It made it so that enemies were capable of traveling effectively around long distances, whereas Navmesh pretty much makes it so that the enemy is, I don't know, like not switching between those kinds of modes. It's effectively always using the Navmesh, even when you're telling him to be dumb and jump around and stuff like that. He has to find a spot on the Navmesh to jump to. I don't know. Okay, let me finish this up because I've just been ranting again. Anyway, so when you do this part, I'm already set up to this sequence, so don't worry, you'll see me playing. I have a trigger volume right here that makes me level 2, and I have full loadout of good stuff for testing, and alright, I'm going to go over, this is what happens when you have a chain gun, by the way. Woohoo! All these credits. 477. I'll lose them all if I fucking die. So you remember last video, if you watched it, I don't know how many people actually make it to the ends of these videos, but do you see now this being the second home point much further in, right before the first big battle? Now when the door opens, the first thing you see with no distractions, notice that there's no enemies shooting at me. Well, not right away anyway. Chain gun just ate that motherfucker alive. There's a very obvious number 1 sitting there. Now that's representative of a iconic icon, an iconic icon that when or if the game gets art, I would instruct the artist. I'd say, okay, so I have these battle sequences that have very, an iconic symbol of some sort that will glow or, react. And then I would communicate with the artist and let the artist kind of figure out what would be really cool. Like there's a certain point, like you can't micromanage too much. You just be like, okay, like this is what I'm trying to accomplish. How would you like to solve the problem? And but right now this is a symbol that you are introduced to instantly as soon as you see this. So now, right now, my intention is to communicate with the player. I am saying, there's this thing, see it? And it's a door that won't open. Huh. It works differently than the other doors. I've presented the problem before I have presented the solution. So now there are imps over here shooting fireballs at you. God, this chain gun man just eats them alive. The advanced like heavy weapons, the grenade launcher, and the fucking advanced like I use the plasma rifle. Oh my god, I killed like an entire room of enemies instantly, practically. Well, anyway, so you travel in. Hey, what's this? Kill this dude here, and this door is not working correctly. Purposefully chilled this area out. There's no more enemies other than the handful of imps. I want this area to look foreboding, and there's the same symbol on a cube or an object right there. Right now, these things can look different. They can be like a cool like statue or some shit like that. Really, it's the gameplay I'm concerned about. So when you walk up to it, you channeling battle, which I'm sure there's probably a better way to put that. But then now I spawned a bunch of zombies. Like I'm channeled this thing. Like now I'm fighting these guys and try and get this battle to like not eat me alive. Please don't shoot me, chain gunner guy. Pain chance, pain chance. All right. We dropped good stuff. And I'm going to die. Okay, kill this imp. Oh god, I'm gonna die again. Oh! By the way, the game's kind of tough. Well, anyway, once you complete the fight, now the door will then become accessible. So I probably should just save the chain gun. Alright, here's my stuff that I dropped. Man, I had a whole fucking lot of stuff, didn't I? That's one of the other things too, is that in Dark Souls, when you drop your souls during a boss fight or something like that, you pretty much have to run back into the boss chamber just to fucking like, you have to like avoid this giant thing that's currently trying to kick your ass in order to recover your souls, and then at that point you still have to beat the boss. It's you or him. This ends up being kind of long again. Alright, I promise I'm not going to die this time, and if I do, I'll just go in the editor and explain the rest, but that's pretty much it. Oh, the imps kill the fucking... Jesus, man. Jesus. Okay. Chain gun. Because there's 20 of them. Oh my god. Alright. I'll have to use the assault rifle to kill the BST. But, which is now surrounded by nothing but fast zombies. That's fucking fantastic. I think I hate myself because I have to actually test this. I don't have cheats. Okay. I can kill this guy. I just gotta strafe around him. Oh god. Oh god. Don't. Alright. Well, strafing around them kinda is a thing, I think. Fucking nothing like a bag of health that gets 2 feet away from you and hits you with these fucking things. Alright. Okay, I leveled up. Man, he gives 750 experience points. So, So let's see what kind of cool loot. Ooh, 2,103 credits. I got a damaged howitzer. Ooh, berserker gloves. Sprinter's potion. Medium lockbox. That should probably be a large lockbox, honestly. Um, so we'd take this damaged howitzer. Hell yeah. Oh, that's level 5 fucking small lockbox there. Anyway, howitzer is fucking like super massive damage, slow firing, nuke death thing. Berserker gloves increases your attack power, so I got 12% more attack, but it also reduces your max hit points. All right. So this symbol, you beat this, the symbol changes in some kind of a way, and now I can access this. I go in here, and then there's more enemies, and like I continually do more things, and then I start to throw a different symbol, and now this symbol will have like more things. Like there'll be a lift right here, and then there'll be a symbol. Like this whole area now requires that I go through it once looking for the second battle sequence, but I will end up actually sort of navigating through it as sort of like a, so like I'll see that there's a number 2 here, there's a number 2 here, and like I'll go into here, there'll be kind of a courtyard area that kind of leads up to this, and that lets you circle around here, which then takes you up above to a bridge over here, and then there's like a whole fight up here. But there'll be a number 2 thingy in this sort of open courtyard, and it'll kind of feel sort of like an optional fight. If you do this, you'll be able to go into, I'm not really sure yet, but like you'll be able to access up here, and then there will be an exit to another level. So you have to do the number 2 battle in order to get to an exit that takes you to another area, right? And if you go up this way, it leads to a bridge fight that's like up here, which is kind of like a long distance thing that takes you down to this. And I'm not really sure what I'm going to be doing in this area here, but it'll end up taking you back around to here where you're kind of like looking this way. There's a shortcut. If you jump off of this, you can go to this area here, but the enemies are going to be like level 4 or 5. So you'll have to be extra careful, but you'll be able to access level 4 or 5 gear, and again you'll be presented with like, you know, a battle sequence level 4 or 5. I'm actually thinking of having one part right up here where there's a door, and it's like a 5. You see the symbol will be a number 5. Okay, so that's pretty much that. Like I won't be able to get it super duper far like what I'm talking about, but that, I think that conveys what I need to get at. And the video is a lot longer than it should be again. But I'm going to end it here. Stay tuned for more. I'm going to keep doing these. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Like, I don't know who makes it 27 minutes. I really need to like either learn how to talk faster. Just speed up my voice. You're not going to lose anything.